This is a new Republican Party. Our base, we're no longer the country club Republicans. We have to understand that our base is now working and middle-class Americans. They're the people that put Trump in office. So anything that we do has to have an eye toward making sure that working families are not getting hit with a tax increase.
But the objective here is to have an overall tax bill that addresses the economic needs of the middle class and the vast majority of Americans.
We're looking at everything in the tax code, and we're going to provide a tax code that creates growth. It's pro-small business, pro-family, pro-worker.
The Tax Cut and Jobs Act under President Trump wrote it to 37 for those on income levels over $750,000. By bringing it from the 37 as we're redoing the tax plan to perhaps 38.6, right? It would still be 1% less than it was before. If you were to bring it up at one point, it brings about $15 billion in revenues. So if it did come up to 39, it's almost $25 billion.
House Republicans recently joining Mornings with Maria discussing a potential plan to raise taxes on millionaires to pay for President Trump's low and middle income tax cuts. The president weighing in on this last night. Watch.
Would you support a millionaire tax?
I think it would be very disruptive because a lot of the millionaires would leave the country. You know, in the old days, they left states. Now with transportation so quick and so easy, they leave countries. You'll lose a lot of money if you do that. Other countries that have done it have lost a lot of people. They lose their wealthy people. That would be bad because the wealthy people pay the tax.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reportedly telling a group of investors that the Trump tax cuts could be passed by 4th of July. Joining me now is North Carolina Congressman Greg Murphy. He's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. What is the timeline that you think we're looking at here? Because the American people voted for tax cuts. They want the tax cuts. They understand it's a layer of the economic policy, but there's no time to lose here.
Yeah, there isn't any time to lose, Jackie. We're working hard. I'm a member of the Ways and Means Committee, and Chairman Smith, we worked on it all last year, you know, in theory, and now we're working on it in practice. We're having a lot of long sessions going through every single part of the tax code, looking at what happened in 2017 and what really needs to happen today. No, we don't want to have a $4.7 trillion tax increase on the American people or on American businesses, but we have to do it right. You know, we have a very small margin, and we want to make sure that all our members are protected because we can't do anything if we're not in the majority. But we're going to move forward as quickly as possible. Okay.
Obviously, tariffs are on everybody's minds as well. China this morning saying there are no ongoing trade talks with the United States. A spokesperson saying if Washington really wants to make a deal, quote, it should cancel all the unilateral measures on China. The comments are coming a day after President Trump was asked if he would adjust his China trade strategy. Watch this.
How soon do you want to bring the tariffs on Chinese goods?
Well, that depends on them. We have a situation where we have a very, very great place. It's called the United States of America, and it's been ripped off for years and years. These people know it. We talked about it before you came in. We've been ripped off by every country in the world practically, and friend and foe. And we're not doing that anymore.
Congressman, where do we go from here? Obviously, this is not an easy negotiation, and it's one that will take time. Having said that, are the Chinese willing to have conversations? Because yesterday we heard that we were actively having conversations with them.
Yeah, you know, Jackie, I think the Chinese have to. They have to understand that their economy, only 1/3 of their economy is on domestic consumption. They have to have goods that are exported for China to exist. You know, there's already cracks in the seams of what's happening in China's economy. They will come to the table. You know, I think the American people really are hopefully understanding how, you know, as the President Trump just said, how poorly the United States has been treated really since World War II. We're just merely trying to reestablish what is a fair trade policy and not to let China specifically, as well as some of the other countries, really run over us. We need to develop things back in our own country, manufacturing back in our own country, as we saw during the pandemic. And this is the way President Trump is seeing fit best to do this.
I want to get to this as well. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. announcing a sweeping ban on 8 artificial dyes over the next 2 years, including those commonly found in candy, snacks, and soft drinks. Congressman, you co-chair the GOP Doctors Caucus. I want to get your thoughts on some of the progress that's being made with respect to the health of Americans.
You know, I've done a lot of medical work in a lot of other countries around the world, and the United States has the most colorful and quite attractive food in the world. But you know, what does it do for us? It's not anything of any nutritive value. It doesn't do anything for preservatives. And basically, we have very colorful food from petroleum-based dyes that have questionable health value. You know, you look at some of the studies. There's question whether it has something to do with ADHD. Red dye number 3. I believe it is, causes cancer in animals. So if it's not doing anything good for us and possibly harm for us, I think it's altogether fitting that we have less colorful food. Americans will adapt to this. You know, whether the food industry will go along, hopefully, from what I've read, they are going to be more compliant with doing this. And I think the American people really want it. And it's very interesting because you have the far left and also folks on the far right really coming together on this issue. They don't want things in our food that are potentially hazardous.
Congressman, I just want to get your final thoughts with the minute that we have left together. You know, a lot has been accomplished over the course of time as we reach this 100-day mark. Some things are still open-ended because that's not enough time to really elicit effective change. But having said that, many are saying Trump needs to pass all his agenda items because he needs to tell the American people, look, the Republicans delivered on their promises, and he needs to do that well in advance of the midterms. Your thoughts on how the Republicans can continue to communicate with people and make them understand that they are, in fact, working on this agenda?
Yeah, we really are. I mean, this is a tremendous lift. Because think about this, Jackie. This has been so many years. Look at the tariff issue. You look at what happened with our border. Good Lord, that happened in 4 years. But the tariff issue and the economy has been going on for 50+ years. Rome was not built in a day. I promise we are working as hard and diligently as possible to deliver for the American people. Yes, there's a lot of urgency and expediency that people want things right now. But this is a very, very delicate process, because we're literally rewriting the book. We have accountability in the United States government, which we literally have never had in the nation's history.
Yeah.
So pulling things back and trying to do things the right way really is going to be done in a time that really deserves real execution.
It's a fair point. He's trying to do things that have never been done before. There's a reason nobody's tried to do them, probably largely dominated by fear. So we will be patient. Congressman Greg Murphy, thank you. Good to see you.